Welcome to the Build Review. This is a series where my community submits builds to me and I do a deep dive on them. Now, whether you actually need help with your build or you're just trying to flex on me with your 100 Exalt 20 million DPS build, or you just want to send me a friendly Salutations Exile with your high investment meme build that can barely clear maps, all of those are welcomed here. For more information on how you can submit your build for review, join my Discord, which is linked down below, and find the channel called Build Review. Now, without further ado, let's get on to the video. Okay, so this is the build review of Haru's Dancing Duo. So the first thing we're going to do is just look at whether there are any notes. Not a lot of notes. Goals are clear all endgame content including Cirrus, okay, that's not too bad, and budget of 3 to 5x. That shouldn't be too bad for this build. Dancing Duo is generally not super expensive, because you don't really need that many. You don't really need a 6-link on the weapon, and a couple other things. Most of the items are pretty easy to get. First thing we're going to look at is the tree. So you are Guardian. Generally this build is run as a Pathfinder, especially if you are wanting to do bosses. The main reason for that is that Nature's Boon makes it a lot easier to do bosses because your flasks regain charges every few seconds, and you can also make use of Master Surgeon for more flash charges when you deal a critical strike if you want to, but it's mainly this Nature's Boon. And that makes it so you only have to use like 2 of the flasks, because otherwise, if you're on like a Guardian, for example, it's going to be kind of difficult to keep those flasks up during a boss, so I'd be a little worried about the build being a Guardian. We'll see what we can do though. With the tree, we've got Radiant Faith, we've got Radiant Crusade, Unwavering Crusade, and Bastion of Hope. So Bastion of Hope is good, Radiant Crusade makes sense for a minion build, Unwavering Crusade makes sense for a minion build. If you've got a lot of auras, Radiant Faith might be okay, but I don't know that you're scaling mana in any way. So I don't know how useful Radiant Faith might be. We'll come back to this when we actually go over the tree in full. I just wanted to take a look here at this. Time of Need is probably better. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at your skills. So let's just go down the list here. Convocation, Cast When Damage Taken, Flame Dash, and Frost Bomb. I know a lot of these builds do quite a bit of cold damage on the Dancing Dervishes themselves, so Frost Bomb is probably because of that. And this is linked to work with the Cast When Damage Taken. Flame Dash is your movement ability, and then you've got Convocation leveled up enough that it doesn't hit Cast When Damage Taken. Okay, that one's good. Mortal Call and Cast When Damage Taken. This is fine, but I would probably say that Molten Shell is better for this build. Let me see if you have Molten. Yeah, you do have Molten Shell, but this might not be that useful unless you can get some endurance charges. So I would say that just using the Molten Shell would probably be fine. You got some auras here. Wrath, Hatred, Vol Haste, and Generosity. I don't think that Wrath is very good at all here. This is probably going to be the first thing that I change. So Wrath, I'm not a huge fan of Wrath. Wrath is probably not great. Because it's added damage on a build that needs to be scaling damage. I'm probably going to take out Wrath just because I don't think that it's very good at all for this build. Hatred seems fine. Haste seems okay if you're just using it for the Vol Haste version, and Generosity. Instead of that Wrath, I'm just going to say to put an Enlighten in for now. We'll revisit that later because I don't know that you want to use any of these auras, to be quite honest, but we'll have to see what you're doing. So we've got Flesh Offering, Fortify Melee Fizz, Dominating Blow. Okay, so this is the first problem. Now, I know that I was told that you were having issues getting the build started, like getting the actual map started, and I think this is the problem. Dominating Blow requires you to be doing a Dominating Blow type build. If you are dead set on Dominating Blow, which is not the way I'm gonna go with this, I would honestly recommend that you maybe get Face Breakers and try to do some kind of face breaking something, but that's not really gonna be a Dancing Duo build. That's kind of a completely different build, right? You could probably work Dancing Duo into it because when the Dancing Duo does get disabled when the Rampage procs, you are considered not wielding a weapon for face breakers and stuff like that. That could work, but I think this is your first issue. We're gonna keep going down the list, but I think this is the first problem that you're having. Flesh Offering is probably fine. I would say that most likely because you are a Guardian. Oh no, it's only if you've blocked. Okay, never mind that. Flesh Offering is probably fine. So we'll keep going down the list. So this is in your weapon swap. I'm gonna delete these so that it gets rid of a little bit of the clutter. This is your main actual link here. Okay, the first problem that I see is that you've got additional accuracy and minion speed. Both of these are completely useless gems. So we're gonna get rid of minion accuracy, we're gonna get rid of minion speed. Those are not helping you whatsoever. From what I can tell, you are doing a decent amount of cold damage, and this build does pretty good cold damage. So first thing I'm going to say is added cold damage is probably what you want to put here, just so you can give some extra cold damage to your minion. The other thing, there's not a lot more that you can really do here that's going to be great. So I would say probably Ruthless is fine. And the other thing is that melee fizz is probably not too great for this build. What I'm probably gonna say, melee fizz would be better if you were scaling just physical damage, but this build typically adds cold damage to the actual build itself. So I don't know that melee fizz is that great. I'm probably going to say Feeding Frenzy would be much better here. This will be most likely a little bit better for the build itself, would be Feeding Frenzy. Ruthless would probably be your 6th link though, so we're gonna move this around. Now, because it is Dancing Duo, this link is in your Dancing Duo, so you just need a 6 socket, which is pretty easy to get, so you'll most likely already have a 6 socket. I can actually check if you do. And you do, so. Oh, did you buy a linked one? You don't need a linked one, by the way. So let's keep going down the list. This looks a lot better. So with added cold damage and Feeding Frenzy and Ruthless in here, the rest of those links were kind of bad, to be honest with you. Accuracy does almost nothing. Melee Fizz isn't great because of how you're scaling it, and minion speed is definitely not good. So let's keep going. So this is in your weapon swap. Vault Ancestral Warchief and Melee Fizz. In a weapon swap, huh? What is your weapon swap? Frost Breath and Ragebane. So I'm guessing that you're just using these as just random items to have. Okay, so this is just in a weapon swap, so we're gonna delete it. Let's keep going. So this is in your boots here. You've got Vulnerability, Blood Magic, Vol Molten Shell, and Summon Carrion Golem. So you are using Vol Molten Shell, and I would say that Immortal Call is probably not really useful for you. So I'm going to get rid of the Immortal Call. You can keep it if you like, but I don't think that that's very useful. Vulnerability in particular is probably not the curse that you want to use. It is going to increase the physical damage that they take, which you're not going to be doing a ton of. So what I'm going to say here is you probably don't need any kind of curse at all because you're going to be doing hybrid damage. I would say the vulnerability probably can just go completely. As for blood magic, I'm not sure why you're casting Molten Shell and Carrion Golem off of blood magic unless it's just that you don't have enough mana normally, which I could see. So I'll leave that in for now. Vol Molten Shell is fine. A trick for Molten Shell, you can actually put Molten Shell in your left clink and then keep Vol Molten Shell just anywhere else that you can use, and it'll just use your Molten Shell as you're running around, which is pretty good. Carrion Golem. So I would say Carrion Golem's not actually very useful for you almost at all. It's okay, but it's just adding physical damage, which you can keep it if you like, but I don't think that this is super useful. Manifest Dancing Dervish we already looked at. Aspect of the Crab. So I'd probably say you're not using Aspect of the Crab if I had to guess. Edict of Thunder is fine. Then you're using Herald of Ice on a ring. Are you actually using Herald of Ice? I would say, judging by the fact that you're using a Circle of Fear, that you are actually using Herald of Ice. So Herald of Ice is okay, and you can continue with Herald of Ice if you like, but what I would say is that most likely what I would recommend for this build is switching over to Herald of Agony. I don't think Herald of Ice is really doing that much for you right now. I feel like Hatred is fine, Vol Haste is fine, but I would say that that's probably the only aura that you really want right now. The other aura that I would use would probably be Herald of Agony. Now this is going to be the major way that this build changes quite significantly, is going to be the fact that I think that you should be using a linked Herald of Agony, and then you can either do one of a few things. Now, the build that I'm familiar with is a Pathfinder, and that guy uses Stormbrand to apply poisons as well as elemental equilibrium so that he can get more cold damage off of his minions. That's probably the ideal setup for you. So I would say you would also want to do Stormbrand, and then you would link like lesser poison and probably normal poison, just so you have a very high poison chance, because this will give you 40% chance to poison, and this will give you a 60% chance to poison, and then you could do like faster casting or something like that, right? So this is probably what I would recommend, because this is going to give you a bunch of poison chance because Stormbrand hits quite often. You can also go and grab Runebinder, which is really close to what you're doing already. So it would be boom, 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 boom. You would grab that. We'll do some more working on the tree because I know that increases your points by like 5 there. Very easy fix, get rid of that. So there you go. Now we're back down to about what it needs to be. You don't need Resolute Technique because we're not going to be hitting anymore. I would say Stormbrand would definitely be a useful skill for you. You can get Elemental Equilibrium now. So instead of that, you can just come over here, grab, let's see, probably the best way to get that because this will give us some regen. Okay, let's worry about this in a little bit. Let's finish with the skills first before we start messing with your tree. So Stormbrand definitely is one of the options. Another option that you could do with Stormbrand would be that you could just do Blade Vortex. I'm not going to fully recommend the Blade Vortex here just because it's harder, but you could do Blade Vortex if you wanted to. I think Stormbrand is better just because it's just a very easy skill to slot in. It gives you that elemental equilibrium bonus, plus it hits quite often with Runebinder. This is probably what I would recommend, as this is the general thing that the one guy that I know of that does this build uses. Herald of Ice is probably not too useful. Now you can link the Herald of Agony. Herald of Agony is actually pretty good if you link it, and if you are gaining a bunch of virulence through poisoning things, which you can do with Stormbrand, it's also very good. So we're probably going to do damage on full life would be good. We'll get minion damage. Pierce is pretty good on this, as well as Vicious Projectiles, if I can spell it. Vicious Projectiles is pretty good. And then the last thing would be Maim. Now you can replace Maim, because this requires a 6 link. You can replace Maim with an Empower if you get like a level 4 Empower, but I'd say Maim is probably better for now. So this is going to use up most of your mana, right? Especially between Hatred and all of this. So I would recommend that you get just any helmet with the reduced mana cost of Herald of Agony on it. That'll help you a ton. I think that's about it here. Everything else in here is mostly fine. So the next thing we're going to go over is we're going to go to items. So let's talk about your items here. So Dancing Duo, perfectly fine, nothing special here. Your helmet looks good. It's got good resist, good life. Got some stats on it. One thing, like I said before, is that you probably want to get a different enchant on here. We're looking for Herald of Agony and the 30% reduced mana reservation. So that would be a lot better, because you can see as soon as we save this, we go from 4 mana to 24% mana. So that will help you a ton if you can just get any helmet with that reservation reduce and then just craft whatever you need on it. So let's keep going down the list. Thracian's Carapace is probably fine. This gives you some good armor, some good life, some good resist, and it's got bleeding immunity on it. Good chest piece. This will definitely help you a lot with Molten Shell. So this will give you a good amount of armor that you can use with Molten Shell. I see you've got like 12,000 armor, so Molten Shell is probably already pretty good for you. You also got Shaper's Touch. I don't know that you actually stack that much of anything. I see you've got 255 int, 281 strength, and like 150 something dex. I actually don't know how great this is for you. It looks like it's giving you 100 life, it's giving you 122 mana, and some energy shield. I actually think you could get much better than Shaper's Touch. I would recommend, let's just craft you some gloves. So probably something with Chaos Res on them and some life would probably be better for you than Shaper's Touch. You don't need the accuracy anymore. So if that's what you're using it for, we don't need that at all. So let's craft some gloves. So we'll just do some armor gloves. You don't need melee damage, so we're going to go with just some Titan gauntlets, and we will see here. So you just want life and some resist. So we're gonna do chaos resistance. And what else can we put on here? I mean, that's pretty much it. We'll just put some other random resists on here so we can get some fire res on here. So some fire res, we'll give it a bit more life. 70 life, 25 chaos resist, and like 35 fire resist. That shouldn't be too difficult to get. So we'll add this to the build, and let's see what we get here. When we switch over to this, we gain 87 life, lose a little bit of mana, lose a little bit of energy shield, but you're gaining some chaos resist, and you're gaining some other resist, and it'll give you, free you up in a little bit more in your other pieces of gear. Do we have Herald of Ice? No, it is disabled. Oh, one other thing in skills that you could probably do well with. So right now, what I would say is that you should move some of these skills around a little bit because some of these aren't really used. We're not gonna be using this anymore. So in your gloves instead, what I would recommend would be to use a Spectre link. So you would get Raised Spectre, you would do Meat Shield, Minion Life, and what else would we want? Probably Blood Magic. What you're going to do with this is that in Act 7, there are some like chieftains that you can get. There's a Host Chieftain, and I don't remember the exact name of the other one, but they provide frenzy charges and they provide power charges to your minions. So with the Spectres, you should be able to have 2 Raised Spectres with this. You should get one of the ones that does frenzy charges and one of the one that does power charges. This will help you quite a bit. It'll provide charges to all of you guys. So use the Raised Spectre instead. So let's get back to items. So Creation's Carapace is fine. Your boots are fine. I would say you don't have any immunity to freeze. So boots are fine here. I would probably recommend that you get a little bit better movement speed. It says 12% chance to gain Onslaught for 4 seconds on kill. If you are utilizing that, I'm pretty sure you have Onslaught. Yeah, so while there are at least 5 nearby allies, you and nearby allies have Onslaught. So you should be able to get 5 allies if you're using the Spectres, you're using that Carrion Golem, and then the 2 Dancing Dervishes. That should be 5. So I would say you probably don't need to use these for Onslaught. I would get some boots with some better movement speed is one thing that I would definitely get. I would look for some better movement speed here. Let's actually sort this a little bit better. And let's change this to Adjusted Boots is the name here. Those are boots, right? No, those are gloves. There you go, suggested gloves. So with boots, these are fine. I would probably just say you want some more movement speed because that's not enough movement speed. Looking at your amulet here, you've got Diamond Skin. I don't think that you need Diamond Skin. You have quite a bit of resist. Yeah, I would say that you really don't need Diamond Skin. I would probably recommend doing something like Death Attunement maybe to give yourself another Spectre, or maybe Arcane Chemistry to get you some reduced flash charges used. Druidic Rite would probably be good for that as well. I would definitely say that you really don't need Diamond Skin though, because we're not using a lot of uniques here and you've got plenty of resists already, so Diamond Skin definitely not. I would choose one of those ones that I suggested, or you could even get a defensive node somewhere, right? Like you could just get life or something like that. But that one, probably not too useful. So moving on, we've got Circle of Fear. So I definitely say Circle of Fear is not worthwhile. I would just change this to any other just normal ring, right? You really don't need Circle of Fear. You could probably just get like an unset ring or something that you could put your golem into if you wanted to do that, or just any other decent ring. Now looking at this is your main source of Herald of Ice, and it's got some attack speed and some other things. It looks like it adds cold and lightning damage. What I'd say here, drop the Herald of Ice ring, just get a good ring with some good stats like life and resist and whatever else you need. I don't think you need anything special here. Let's see, belt. Your belt looks fine. It's got reduced flash charges, which is good. You definitely need that, especially since you're not a Pathfinder. And I'm assuming this is the jewel that goes in it. Seems fine, nothing wrong there. Now you're using 3 writhing jars. This is kind of going to be the part where being a guardian is going to hurt you more than help you. If you were a Pathfinder, you wouldn't have any problem keeping up your writhing jars and being able to keep up your rampage, but because you are using a guardian, 3 is probably going to be necessary. Something that you could maybe do to help yourself would be something like a Vault Breach. So this is just the portal gem that spawns breach monsters instead. This could help you out a bit sometimes if you're running out of charges, because it'll give your minions something to kill, but you're really going to struggle a little bit on bosses specifically because of that. You're really going to have to see if you can maximize, like, say, Soul of Rislatha. I don't know that life charges works on hybrid flasks. It might. That'll have to be something that you test. I've never really tried that before. Other than that, probably just Solaris or Lunaris would be fine. So let's see. Let's keep going down the list. So you got 3 writhing jars. It's kind of going to be what you just have to do. So this flask right here, Quartz Flask of Grounding. This is giving you immunity to shock. As far as I can tell, you don't have any freeze immunity or curse immunity. So what I would probably say is that this needs to be one of those 2 things. It either needs to be freeze immunity or it needs to be curse immunity. You really need both, to be honest with you. Something that you could do. This really isn't that useful for you. You could get rid of Radiant Faith and you could get Time of Need. This would make it so that curses would have less effect on you. They would get removed every so often and you're just going to regenerate a lot more. Probably say that this is a little bit better than Radiant Faith, just because the part of Radiant Faith that's good is the reserved life, giving you armor. The energy shield is reserved mana, is only good if you're stacking mana, and you're definitely not doing that on this build. So I'd say Time of Need would be better there. So let's see here. So this, probably freeze immunity would be best. Rumi's Concoction, The block is good because it synergizes well with the Guardian, the Bastion of Hope here, which means that you're going to block more often, and that will help you quite a bit there. So that's probably fine. You may want to consider changing this into a normal Granite Flask and getting whatever you didn't get with the other one, meaning like Curse or Freeze immunity. You might want to do that. Now let's take a look at your jewels. You've got a lot of Ghastly Eye jewels here. So this just looks like you're just adding some random damage to your minions. This is probably fine, but I'm not sure that it's exactly ideal. Right, so now let's take a look at the tree. So the tree itself, we already changed this over to Time of Need because I don't think Radiant Faith is actually that useful. But let's take a look at the tree here. So we've got some pretty decent life. Got the full life wheel, that life, this life. Start from the beginning here. So you come out through here, you grab the life, you grab the minion damage. Maximum mana and reduced cost of skills. I don't know how useful these two nodes are. I'd probably suggest removing these two nodes. Those aren't really that useful. If you're using this just for dexterity, that's probably fine, but 2 points in dexterity can probably be gotten better through items. I'd say like on your gloves or something like that, just look for some dexterity. And then you can save 2 points here. So let's actually just do that. So right now we need 22 dexterity, so very easy to get 22 dex on gloves. Oh yeah, so we'll get 30 dex on gloves, save, you're good. You don't actually need those two nodes. Only other thing in here is movement speed. You don't need the accuracy, you don't need the attack and cast speed. You want to probably get some better movement speed on your boots, because I was looking at your boots, there's only 16% movement speed. Just invest in a little bit better movement speed boots. Shouldn't be too expensive, a couple chaos maybe. So let's keep moving down here. So minion damage here is fine. Come over to here, you grab life and reduce mana cost of skills. It's an okay source of life. It's not ideal, but it is okay. We come down here. You're grabbing dexterity and intelligence. Don't think that that is ideal by any means. The life is okay, but I don't really think that you want to be going with that. I would just once again get a little bit more dexterity on, say, whatever else that you want here, right? So say we change out, you don't really need the intelligence, but it might be hard to get that on there. Let's change this out for just a better ring. Let's change this to Apocalypse Eye, and then now we need about 40 dex. So we'll get you, instead of that, let's actually craft an item. So ring, whatever we want here. Let's just say we got a random 2-stone ring, okay? So we'll create this, we're gonna do life, we're going to do dexterity, we're going to do chaos resistance, and what else? Probably some just cold resistance or something like that. Don't need much else. Put that up there. We need about 40 dex. Some chaos res, some cold res. Okay. Add to build. Wort. Gonna do just a suggested ring. Okay, save, and we'll put that here. So now you've got dex, don't have to worry about it, don't need those points. I don't know how useful this entire point section is, to be honest. So right now we're at 85. Let's look at the rest of the build here. So you come up here through minion life, you grab this life here, you grab these nodes. You probably don't need that node. You've got all this reduced mana reservation. Do we need this? Yeah, it probably is good. We'll probably keep that. I already changed over to Rune Binder for using Stormbrand. It's fine. You've got this slot here. That's fine. Moving over here, life, this slot here. I don't know how useful this is, to be honest with you. The increased minion duration, that actually doesn't do very much for you at all. It's not a lot of minion damage, it's not a lot of minion attack speed. I actually think that whole wheel is mostly useless. I'm gonna say remove that. Go up to here, you grab the life there, you go through the minion nodes. I'm not sure why you're getting more mana here. More mana is not really going to do very much for you. If you're trying to stack mana because of this node, it's really not going to do very much for you. I would say stacking mana there is less than ideal. So you got some life, which is good. Now we've got a bunch of extra points that we can put in, right? So you went down here and you grabbed that. this is really not that ideal, but what I'm going to say is that you're going to want to come up here and get Arcane Chemistry. And then you are also most likely going to want to get Ravenous Horde. This is actually pretty good damage. Ravenous Horde gives you chance to gain Onslaught, which you don't really need, but it gives you damage, movement speed, attack, and cast speed. And you'll see here that these nodes are quite a bit better for minion damage. This is the minion damage circle that I would suggest that you get. So that's going to get you back up to around 88, which is what you were already at. So I'd say Arcane Chemistry is pretty good here because it's going to give you the reduced flash charges used and the increased effect of flasks. Plus, get these damage nodes for minions instead of these ones over here. These ones aren't that great. They're mainly for skill duration, and that's not actually going to do anything for your skill. Your skill just goes away as soon as the rampage is gone. Now, the other thing that I'm going to say do most likely is you might want to get Elemental Equilibrium. And to do that, I'm probably going to just say that you come through here this way, you drop all of this. Like, I don't think that anything below this section here, besides maybe this dexterity, is useful. You could get rid of that node if you wanted to, or we could probably just do this, right? So we'll come down here, we'll grab these 3 nodes and grab Elemental Equilibrium. I think that this can probably be done better. I don't actually think you need these life nodes over here that much. Yeah, I think that could be done better. I don't think that these nodes are very useful at all. These can probably be removed maybe for some cluster jewels. We'll take a look at cluster jewels in a minute. So it turns out I completely forgot to do this. Basically, the cluster jewels that you would want to look for, there's not a lot that's very good for this build. Looking at the list here, there is Pure Agony, which is going to give you +5 to maximum virulence and make your minions deal 20% increased damage. There is also Disciples, which is going to make you lose virulence 30% slower. Besides that, I'd probably just get maybe some life ones to match those, and that's about it. Honestly, cluster jewels don't look too great for this build. I'm not sure what would be ideal for you, but probably removing all of this, like just taking out all of these nodes and all of these nodes, and maybe going for like this cluster jewel or this cluster jewel, or even this one over here. But there's probably not that many great cluster jewels for this build, so we'll see. You also got the Righteous Army, Spiritual Aid, and Redemption. I mean, that's all fine. There's nothing really wrong with this. However, it may be better to go attack speed here than it is to go minion damage here. I'm not sure about that particular build, but it might be better. I'd probably say that's about it for the tree. Everything else looks fine. Just keep those couple notes about what I said. Remember, Elemental Equilibrium is going to help you with a ton of damage because of Stormbrand. And then we move to these minion nodes over here. We get rid of some mana scaling. Make sure that we have that. I don't know that you really want these nodes here, and I don't know that you want these nodes here. And then we grabbed Arcane Chemistry. You can probably just drop these and grab these instead, this life node here. This will give you some increased flask effectiveness as well as just some random life and increased life recovery from flask. That's probably more useful than these nodes down here. On your items in particular, I noticed that you have some pretty good stats. Like, there's some decent life and everything here, but I would almost suggest that a lot of these gems, you may want to try taking off some of this, like let's go through the list here. So, like, you have Energy Shield on this one and some minion attack and cast speed. I'd probably suggest getting some life on these gems, on these jewels, rather. I don't think that you need to get so much, like minion accuracy is not really going to do very much, minion movement speed's not that great. I'd probably suggest just getting some life, either percentage life through a normal gem or added life through an abyssal gem. That's definitely going to increase your life quite a bit. And yeah, that's going to be most of it. What I would say as well, let's go over a couple more things here. So you really don't need a Lyra. If you want a Lyra, I would say 2 passive points is definitely best. And I would say most likely switching to Agony. Herald of Agony is going to be much better for your damage. You're going to keep that up with Stormbrand. You're just going to cast Stormbrand and you'll use Brand Recall. You can put Brand Recall on your left click if you want. But I would probably say just keep Molten Shell there and just actually cast the Brand Recall. So this will allow you to apply poisons with lesser poison support and poison support. You've got a 100% chance to poison on hit, and then you can just use faster casting. You do have the option of using the Blade Vortex if you want, but I don't think it's as good because With Stormbrand, it's going to be a lot easier to cast, a lot easier to get on the enemy, and on top of that, you'll be able to use Elemental Equilibrium. The last thing that I want to talk about is you might want to swap out your gloves. So this is something that I looked up. Let me pull it up here. There are a pair of gloves that are kind of useful for you. It's going to be Grip of the Council. So I looked these up, and we've got Grip of the Council here. Get these in the build. So Grip of the Council. Now, what these are going to give you is they're going to give you gain 20% of physical damage as extra cold damage for your minions will get some cold resist, you'll get some cold resist, some strength, and some life. This gain 20% of physical damage as extra cold damage is pretty good for minions, so this can be a suggestion on something that you could potentially use as a big source of cold damage for your Dancing Duo boys. As I said, we switched over your skill to added cold damage, as that's generally a good way to actually scale the damage is through cold, and you are using Hatred as well, so this will allow you to scale some pretty decent damage there. So the new way that you're going to play this build is that you're going to run into whatever map that you're going to. You can start out with Stormbrand, you can just actually begin killing things with the Herald of Agony now, because you're just going to be attaching poisons to it. It'll do a ton of damage, it'll start your rampage, and it'll get you going. Herald of Agony is much better for single target than the Dancing Duo is going to be. And on top of that, it will also give you just a little bit better clear and an easier way to actually start the build going off. Stormbrand is mainly just going to be used to get Herald of Agony going. As for bosses, I know something that you really wanted to do is to be able to kill bosses. However, this build is going to suffer with it a little bit. The biggest thing that you're going to have problems with is actually keeping up your flash charges to be able to continue to have the boys up for bosses. I will say that when switching over to the Herald of Agony build, you will have a little bit easier time, because even if the boys go down, you will still be able to have Herald of Agony up perfectly fine just because of Stormbrand. And with Runebinder, this is going to mean that you can have 2 brands attached to that target, so it's going to be more poisons that are going on it, which is going to make your Herald of Agony do quite a bit more damage. So that's pretty much it. Now, I offer this to pretty much anybody. If you have any further comments, I'd be happy to answer questions or clarify on anything. Most things are going to be included in this build. I do have a link to this path of building that's going to be down below the video. And beyond that, actually, no, not really useful. Beyond that, remember, if you want to actually get your build reviewed, check on my Discord for the Build Reviews channel. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content like this, and that's pretty much going to be it. So take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.